Well, with me is Barry Murphy. Of course, we're talking about that situation which is just broken, and we're doing this interview. Literally, I got you out of bed because he's been on nights at the moment.
But,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Manx Gas at the very last minute, it seems. Well, pretty close anyway. Pretty close to having it all made up for them. They've come forward and have announced on a press release that they've got an agreement with the Isle of Man government. And while we do this, we will run that little press release just so we can hear from their end. But your initial views on this, and I know you literally have been writing this down on the back of a piece of paper.
I haven't even got a proper nice flat new piece of paper. I mean, this is literally my little girl's paper airplane, but I'll make him another one. It's a shock. I say it's a shock, Paul, but it's not a complete shock, because I think if it was ever going to, if an agreement of any sort was ever going to happen, it was always going to go to the last minute. In my experience of working with governments, I have two real things I tend to get along with. One is transport, and the other one's to do with gas, and this is the way it's been. And what I find is decisions are always made on a Friday, and they're always made on a Friday afternoon, just before the weekend, just before the government workers go home and put their feet up, and there's absolutely nobody there to contact. In this instance, of course, it's worse than that, because this is due to go to Tynwald on Tuesday to be discussed. The order paper for Tynwald has already been released. I think it came out towards the end of last week.
Thursday, I think.
Thursday, was it?
Probably, yeah.
And in there's no mention of this. I'm aware, because I've watched the video, you had the MHK for Douglas Central in here. Mr. Thomas came in, he done an interview with that, and he was the Policy and Reform Minister. I mean, he is, to me, if there's one politician that you can trust and take on board what he's saying from a legal perspective and from a legislation perspective, it's him. He knows his stuff, and he led me to believe that at this late stage, because the order paper's already in, I don't see how they can bring this forward.
Well, under emergency one, I guess.
Well, maybe, but possibly now. But I mean, it needs to be looked at. I mean, the clerk obviously has to look at this as well, and the
MHKs need to study surely as well.
Of course,
all the details.
I mean, of course. I mean, the thing is with this, right? I mean, this is run on for four or 5 years. I've been involved in this now, and they've never been able to strike a deal. Clearly, a deal has never been reached. It seems, certainly looking where I look from the outside, they've always been a million miles away from a deal. So here we are today, and we're saying a deal is now reached. So I suppose we have to look at, first of all, we have to look at the deal, and we have to decide if it's a good deal, and then we also have to think about whether or not at this stage it's acceptable or not. So I think you probably already gather I don't think it's acceptable at this stage.
Well, this is an agreement, right? I mean, if it hadn't gone to that, there could have been regulation threatened, right? I mean, so they've gone to the sort of brink. There's been someone had to blink first. This seems like it's a deal that's been done, which you don't know anything much about, but they're coming out, and as you saw in the press release, it's going to be good news to customers, is what their headline is on this.
Well, first of all, we have to keep this right. So, and there's a lot in it, and I'll try to keep it simple, but there's a lot. So the first thing is this came back to Tynwald in July. And from a legislation perspective, from a legal perspective, they call this the heads of terms. It's called the heads of terms. So there was literally two heads of terms were supposed to come forward. One was a voluntary deal, and that would be part A of the framework of the motion that was brought forward in July for Tynwald, and then this was put back in July and then was to come back in October. So that's the first thing. So the heads of terms would come forward. So we would have a detailed, compiled heads of terms about what exactly is agreed voluntarily between both parties moving forward. That's what we have. And that's part A. And the second part was part B. Or was it one or two? It doesn't really matter. It's the same thing. Is if a voluntary deal couldn't be agreed, there would be imposed regulation. So while all this is going on, clearly the people in the government would be working on two ideas. First of all, they'd have to try to come to an agreement with Manx Gas, and of course that would also have to include all of the terms of NERA, the report, and everything else along the way, including discounts, reduced prices moving forward. So there would be a lot to agree, in fairness. But the second part is simple. If that wasn't agreed, you would have to go back to imposed regulation. If we went to imposed regulation, yes, it's a lot to get our heads around in the short term, but it means fairness in the longer term, because what it does is it means we can bring all utilities eventually under a regulator, and then we can also look at bringing transport under a regulator, and we can basically bring buses and taxis under that, and we can have a proper regulator, independent, that can look at everything that the government is involved in and take away these conflicts of interest. So at the end of the day, you either get a quick fix and make it look good, or you work hard and you make and develop something for the betterment of the future. So it's not simple enough to say that this is what it's going to be, because it's not going to be this. They will have to agree to this. But the problem is, for them to agree to it, they have to be able to study it and work out exactly what's in it. But the problem is, we have a little report on here from Manx Gas, which gives very little information, because this is not a small issue. This affects thousands and thousands of customers, from very minimal use to huge use.
Right. I mean, we've seen the press release. Have you got more information on that somewhere else?
No.
So we're only going from that press release.
That's
really?
all. I mean, Manx Radio have run it a little bit today, and they're very clear. There's been no confirmation from government on this, and I would imagine, and again, this is me just using what the information are, the sense that I have, the government will have to get this through the clerk of Tynwald. The paper's there, it's already there, and it's very clear that up to 9 o'clock this morning, there was only one way this was going to go, and this was imposed regulation. And that is the way it has to go, Paul.
What do you want to see happen? I mean, obviously it could go to debate. I mean, and you'd hope it would in Tynwald, if nothing else. But of course, if it's got the Comyn backing, it's sort of going to go through, isn't it? I mean, that's it, isn't it? It's all over.
Well, what would I hope would happen? I mean, if we're living in a democratic society, and if we're saying that fairness is paramount, this should not go to Tynwald at all.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. And if we accept that the government are there to let us down on this matter, and just to railroad and to push this thing through at the very last minute, if that's what we're to accept, and if that's what we say is good enough, which I don't, then they'll have to discuss it. But the problem is, Paul, there's no information. No. There's nothing laid out.
Can you rally your troops? Will you have a demonstration or do some?
Well, I mean, my intention was to literally go to Tynwald on the day and sit in the gallery and listen to the
what they say.
Listen to the new policy minister make his announcement about what was going to happen. I mean, this is all new, and of course, I still think there's a very good chance this won't happen. I mean, I'm here today to say that it shouldn't happen, and I'm here today to say if it does happen, it's unfair. Paul, honestly, truthfully, look, even in the height of the campaign, you came down, you were at our little rallies, our little demonstrations that we had, and it was difficult to rally troops on a Tuesday afternoon, because people have to work, and especially this year, people are under pressure financially as well. So I'm going to struggle to get anyone together at this stage, but it shouldn't happen, is what I'm saying to you. But then we have to move on to what's in this, because what's in it doesn't meet what we're asking for either. We're looking at it, and it's minimal. So we're saying that they're looking at a 13.7% reduction in the bills coming through the door in 2020, which is the year we're in now. So there'll be a rebate for this year and for 2021. It meant absolutely no mention about what's going to happen in 2022. 2022 is 15 months away now. So what's going to happen in 2022, nobody knows.
And the capping on this profit, is that detailed? I can't remember.
Well, I mean, they're saying, I think, in this news report here that they've got, this Facebook report, that they're going to drop this down by 13.7. But there's nothing to say what's going to happen after that. I mean, we've also been clear that that we believe that there should be like a whatever the UK price is, we should be somewhere running under that. So we never kind of go above. There should be like a price structure here. There's no mention of anything in there.
So disappointed?
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. Nothing surprises me.
So this has all gone on behind the scenes. Agreement has been hatched. Oh, by the way, we've asked the CEO, and we were hoping him to join us. He's not on the Isle of Man. Well, we need to use Skype, and they hadn't got Skype, so we're hoping he can find Skype so we can talk to him. Do you think it is quite a shadowy deal? Then let's just try that one without putting words in your mouth.
Well, shadowy deal. I mean, there's a word that that describes something that's completely unacceptable. That just wherever way you look at it, it makes no sense. It's called it's a fudge. It's a situation that you kind of expect to happen, but you expect it to happen for all the wrong reasons. You know, the government have had long enough, and they haven't been able to come up with any sort of a final sort of a deal or agreement with Manx Gas. But what's always worried me is that they've spent so much time trying to find a voluntary deal for Manx Gas with Manx Gas, but they've never seemed to spend any time talking about, if that option was never to work out, what this imposed regulation, what this imposed to it. I
appreciate you coming in today, Barry. This is a fast-moving story, and we don't know. There could be obviously some interesting comments from the government, and we'll see you on Tuesday in Tynwald. And who knows? I mean, and also we'd like to hear from the CEO of Manx Gas.
I appreciate. I've not been fully organised on this today because I didn't expect. Honestly, I didn't expect to have to come down. I thought there was always a danger. I actually made a little post on the Facebook group beginning of the week, I think it was, to say that I was scared that something at the last minute could happen.
I read it,
and it has happened, and it's unfortunate, but it's not surprising. Just because it's unfortunate and it's not surprising doesn't mean it should be accepted. We deserve better than that.